So, right as I was about to hit record on today's episode, I came across an interesting hobby lawsuit that I think should be addressed. And you can see the full details of the case on Paul Lesko's Twitter account, which is at Paul_Lesko. Okay, so in October of 2020, Alt purchased a BGS 9.5 Steph Curry Topps Chrome gold refractor from Golden Auctions for $168,000. And if you're not aware of Alt, they're an alternative investment platform that also holds bi-weekly auctions, and there's probably a number of other things they do as well. You might remember them purchasing large stakes of some major cards, including Steph Curry's 2009 National Treasures Logo Man. Anyway, they bought this Curry refractor, and of course the value of this thing went up a ton. And around 2 years later, they cracked it out and sent it to PSA. I guess, they wanted it in a PSA slab instead of a BGS slab. The only problem was PSA determined it was, quote, noticeably short or trimmed top to bottom. So they sent it back to BGS to get their opinion, and I guess, now they agreed that it was trimmed even though they had originally graded the card a BGS 9.5. So now Alt is suing BGS for the August of 2022 value of the card, and not the much lower amount they bought it for. Now, granted, if this thing moves forward, they're still going to have to adjust the current value because it has dropped some since August. Now, this whole thing's funny to me because, as I mentioned earlier, in addition to being an investment platform, Alt holds bi-weekly auctions, and they're still relatively new to that game, but in general, what we've seen, or there's a track record of this, where whenever one of these platforms lists an altered card in a slab, if that sale goes through, they're always able to conveniently put the onus back on the grading company, even if the patch is an obvious fake, or there's evidence that the card has been trimmed. For whatever reason, that slab has become an authority, and we just forego common sense. But now, in this case, when one of them, being the auction platforms, buys an altered card, I guess it's a different story. You can't have it both ways. Now, or maybe you could technically say that them suing BGS is their version of putting the onus back on the grading company. Okay, I can accept that. I'll give them an out there. But they still made one major error here. They cracked the card out before they sent it to PSA. And I don't see this case getting very far because BGS is just going to say, we don't know what happened between this card being cracked and then being sent to PSA, which is a legitimate case because they really don't. And someone on the Blowout forums asked a good question when they said, who would trust Alt's word that it was not trimmed after it was cracked? Because obviously we can't just assume. And if there's anything we've learned over time, this company's name, Alt, and the word trust are not synonymous. Even if you ignore a situation that came up on the Blowout forums where Alt's owner was accused of stealing cards, scamming PSA, and keeping the PSA guarantee money, I'll let you read the details and decide where you stand on that. I'm not going to weigh in. I'm not going to say whether that happened or not. But even if you ignore all of that, which a lot of people keep bringing up, trust has been a major issue up to this point, which is ironic because Alt has tried really hard to incorporate that into their branding and DNA. I saw a screenshot from their beta in 2020 where they called themselves the most trusted alternative asset platform. Well, that's good and all, but then during their first year, they had a browser extension that essentially stole people's data. And it wasn't just like, name and address. It was way more than that. Data that gave them a competitive advantage. They got called out for it, and they immediately changed it without any sort of announcement or apology. They knew that was happening. It doesn't seem to have been any sort of an accident. And then a couple weeks ago, they promised a bunch of people a $30 credit, just $30, for filling out a survey. And when a bunch of people did said survey, they claimed that the threshold was met, despite never publicly establishing one to begin with. So they told all those people, hey, actually, we know you did that survey. We're very thankful for that, but we're not going to pay out. And it was only after a bunch of people complained that they changed their tune and sent out the following message. They said, the trust of our users is essential to us, and we appreciate the feedback we've received. As a startup, we are always looking to improve and are reaching out to those who did not receive the $30 credit and making it right by applying it to your account by December 6th. So they also said, hey, we're a startup, despite the fact that they fundraised several times and had a ton of money. Now, once again, they're trying to tell people how trustworthy they are when their business history clearly states otherwise. And if they were that trustworthy to begin with, they never would have put people in that situation. All of that is to say, this lawsuit is another interesting situation this company finds themselves in. I doubt it goes very far, but only time will tell. And I think you should be aware of some of their history. I'm not here to tell you what to think about Alt, but look at who or what they claim to be, and then look at the actions that have characterized them since. Do they match up or not? And you have to decide that on your own.